Israel has begun deporting members of the Madleen Gaza aid ship after the military intercepted the vessel and detained all of those on board. 4 of the 12-member crew are being returned to their home countries, while 8 remain detained and will contest their deportation before an Israeli tribunal. Swedish activist Greta Thunberg was one of the first deported, and she arrived in France earlier today. Despite the deportations, efforts to get aid into Gaza have not stopped. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition said they plan to send more ships. And at the same time, a grassroots land convoy has started travelling from Tunisia's capital to Gaza, aiming to break Israel's siege of the Strip. The 100-vehicle convoy includes thousands of volunteers from Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Morocco and Tunisia, and it aims to raise awareness about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Now, daily food intake in Gaza is well below survival levels, and the UN has reported that 1 in 5 people currently face starvation.
A tense standoff between the U.S. government and protesters in Los Angeles enters its 4th day, as another 2,000 National Guard troops and 700 Marines are being deployed into the city. Large protests continued calmly on Monday following a weekend of clashes as LA residents attempt to stop immigration raids by ICE officials. U.S. President Donald Trump intervened on Sunday, sending in troops against the wishes of California's Governor Gavin Newsom. Blaming the governor for what he described as a migrant invasion, Trump went so far as to call for Newsom's arrest. In response, Newsom threatened to take legal action against the Trump administration for their deployment of the National Guard, which he says has only escalated the situation. As law enforcement used rubber bullets, stun grenades, and tear gas on demonstrators in LA, the protests have spread to other states at the heart of Trump's immigration crackdown, including Texas and New York. Protesters have continued to demand the release of family members and detained and an end to immigration raids in their workplaces, saying they are fighting to protect their communities.
No es justo. Venimos a este país a trabajar dignamente. Venimos a este país a trabajar honradamente para sacar adelante a nuestros padres que dejamos en nuestro querido pueblo, para sacar adelante a la familia que tenemos aquí. Por favor, le pido en nombre de todos nosotros que estamos sufriendo lo que está pasando. Ayúdenos, por favor. Ayude a nuestra gente a salir donde están. Se lo pedimos, por favor.
The UK, Canada, Australia and New Zealand will sanction Israeli ministers Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, The Times reported today. The sanctions, which retaliate to calls by the ministers to starve and ethnically cleanse Gaza's population, will preclude travel and freeze assets held in these countries' financial institutions. The UK's decision comes amid growing pressure on the government to take harsher action against Israeli abuses, including pressure from the government's own employees. Foreign Office staff were told to consider resigning if they disagree with the government's policy on Israel's war on Gaza, after a letter signed by more than 300 employees expressed concern that the UK's continued arms sales to Israel could make them complicit in international law violations. The letter, sent in May, was the 4th such letter since the war began, and civil servants described a deep sense of disappointment over the government's dismissal of their concerns. Meanwhile, outside the Foreign Office's doors, hundreds of protesters gathered on Monday to urge the government to save the crew of the Gaza Freedom Flotilla after they were detained by Israeli forces. Although the Madleen was a British-flagged vessel, the UK offered no contact to activists as they were intercepted in international waters and avoided condemning Israel's seizure of the vessel. Middle East Eye was at the protest where activists urged the government to intervene.
My name is James Godfrey and I'm a spokesperson for the Freedom Flotilla Coalition. The Israelis' attack on the boat is clearly illegal. The boat with a British flag on it was sailing in international waters 110 nautical miles off the coast of Palestine. We were due to sail from international waters into Palestinian territorial waters. And so Israel has no right to interfere anywhere. But the British people here, as you can see, not just here but all around this country, physically, but also online, over the phone, letters being written. People are lobbying and demanding that their governments do better. It's not good enough. The Madleen has a British ensign on the back of it, the red, white and blue one, predominantly red flag, the British flag, which people see on maritime vessels. The UK government needs to defend its flag.